Hi everyone, Review Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a Redux review of the Kanye West album, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. The critically acclaimed 2010 album from one of hip-hop's most polarizing figures ever, Kanye West. Covering it again has been a consistent request among my viewers, especially since I did a Redux review of the life of Pablo, because the mix and the track list of the record had changed since my original review of it, which I thought vastly improved the album. It's now been about 10 years since this LP originally came out. Over that span of time, I've come to hold quite a bit of respect for the place this album holds in Kanye's discography, a creative bounce back from one of the most tumultuous periods in his life, a major second wind to his career, and a gateway to the more manic and unpredictable side of his discography. My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is worth revisiting now, and even 10 years further down the road too. So Kanye West hails from the city of Chicago, but this record is not about his humble beginnings as a soul-chopping hometown hero or a Jay-Z protege. Instead, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is an extravagant depiction of the high-profile, high-drama celebrity lifestyle Kanye envisioned himself transitioning into after the loss of his mother, after the Taylor Swift interruption at the VMAs, after advancing to become one of hip-hop's most in-demand artists. And the concept of this album is spelled out in the title, in the album's opening lyrics. It's not a bland reality, it's a dark twisted fantasy. One Kanye has been dreaming of since his days in Chicago. But of course there are elements of the album that dwell on the wealth and excess of Kanye's current day, and the way his ego and persona as well as love life ties into that. But still, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is more like a glimpse into a future that kind of came into fruition for Kanye, with him since marrying into the Kardashian clan, allowing his celebrity profile to grow larger in scope than his profile as a musician. From what of it we're exposed to in the media, Kanye's current day is definitely dark and beautiful as well. This record isn't just about the narrative or the concept of fame behind it, it's also about the features, the rapping, the instrumentals, it's the total package. Still to this day, I would say that Dark Fantasy ranks as one of the best openers to any hip-hop record this decade, with its grand and glamorous and stunning piano chords, with its flawlessly arranged chorus of vocals from Justin Vernon and Tiana Taylor. It's an odd but angelic sound. Can we get much higher? Is just like a beautiful moment on the record that I think also expresses the theme and the idea of the concept here, in that we've reached another echelon, a new height of popularity, of fame, of bliss, of euphoria, of extravagance. The beat on this track, once it drops, is absolutely mad. The jangly chimes, the steady kicks and snares, the dusty, wheezing two-note interval melody that sounds like, I don't know, an old Mellotron or something. The way the instrumental thickens up on the second verse, though, the bridge, which is quite ominous too, is great. It's one decadent epic passage after another, and some of my favorite Kanye bars end up on this track too. From the classic aside of, "You ain't got no fucking Yeezy and Serato," to more revealing lines that I think get to the heart of Kanye's personality, like, "Me found bravery in my bravado." There's also excellent strings here, like, "The plan was to drink until the pain over, but what's worse, the pain or the hangover? Fresh air rolling down the window, too many Urkels on your team, that's why your win's low." I loved that the first time I heard it. I still love it now. The cold and confident flow that Kanye delivers all of this with. He sounds like he's in a place where he doesn't have to do too much to prove himself. The following gorgeous, though, without a doubt, it is a special point on the record, thanks mostly to its hefty helping of vocal distortion and Kid Cudi's ghostly, haunting chorus on the cut. And part of me likes how stark and minimal and bare the entire track is. Kanye does drop 3 monstrous verses loaded with quotables and food for thought, where he's boldly touching down on things like paranoia and racial discrimination. The first section of the first verse on this thing is easily one of the most impressive displays of lyricism across Kanye's entire discography. Penitentiary chances, the devil dances, obviously a commentary on the likelihood and statistics that people of color face in terms of landing in prison, and eventually answer to the call of autumn, things being in decline, linking into that by saying, all of them fallen, autumn, fall, for the love of ballin', that fast, money-making, quick, and illegal lifestyle driving people into a position where they have 30 rocks in their pocket, and the cop arresting them looks like Alec Baldwin, basically displaying that racial divide there between those being arrested in and those initiating the drug war. So not only is all of this deeply poetic and clever, but it feels so weird listening back to this because current day Kanye seems so far removed from making any of these kinds of greater connections between oppression, inequity, racial disparities in the justice system. It was even kind of funny going back listening to his initial lyrics on So Appalled, where he says, "I'm so appalled, Spalding ball, balding Donald Trump, taking dollars from y'all." Not only making fun of Donald Trump's stupid hairstyle, but acknowledging that the man's a fucking scammer. People will often say, hey, what happened to the Kanye that said George Bush doesn't care about black people? When honestly, this is the Kanye I want to know where he is. Where is this Kanye right now? Because this is easily one of the most damning commentaries on the black community and the American government's treatment of it on almost any modern rap record. Lyrically, the rest of Gorgeous just gets better from here, in my opinion. At the time when I first reviewed it, Power was maybe my favorite track from the record, one of the best songs of 2010, and I still pretty much feel that way now. In fact, I think there were a lot of ideas here that have only gotten better with age. The iconic vocal chants at the start, the amazing King Crimson sample, the chunky, chunky, chunky boom bap drums, the whole thing sounds larger than life. And Ye's lyrics ingeniously depict him on a power trip of sorts. He sounds like a power-hungry madman on this track. I also love some of the predictive bars on this track too, where he is rapping about grown-up thoughts intruding on his childlike honesty and wanting to have a custody battle to fight for that. Still, I'll take it with a side of cello. Thank you. So one of my favorites on the album here is All of the Lights. I like the little horn line on this track, that's great, and I love Rihanna's slick hook on the song too. Cop lights, flash lights, street lights, Bud Light. The lyrics are less about the abuse and more about bad things happening to the protagonist being inconvenienced or made to go through some sort of struggle as a result of their very bad decisions. We could say the true meaning of this song is that having your life in the limelight often exposes your lowest points, your most embarrassing points, your worst decisions to the widest amount of people. I appreciate this song conceptually and instrumentally. We then get the Star-Studded Monster, a track that is known for its long run of features from Rick Ross to Jay-Z to Nicki Minaj to Bon Iver. I like its freakish attitude. I like its dark energy. I like its sinister vocal intro, the war drums and the beat. Also some of the wilder asides from Kanye in his verse. Put the pussy in the sarcophagus. Put the pussy in the sarcophagus. Okay, just do it. The hook is super slick, and the point of this track isn't too far off from what Kanye was also trying to communicate on Power, how his life, his ego, his persona, his fame has transformed him into something bigger, but also kind of maniacal, something beyond just his simple human form. His lyricism is on point. So Appalled was a front runner for me, one of the best. The odd and lengthy Swizz Beatz refrain on this track is still an earworm for me. Life can be sometimes ridiculous. I still love the track's fuzzy, apocalyptic instrumentation. It is sinister as hell. I will say that Devil in a New Dress still sounds great after all these years, not just because of the clever lyricism, of the smart rhyme patterns, but also the track feels like a very cool update on classic Kanye with its chopped up soul samples, with its sparse drums, with its gleaming strings. On this track, Kanye feels less like he's rapping and more like he's preaching or passionately ranting at some points, and just going on and on and on about temptation and lust and desire. I love the buzzing Mike Dean guitar solo on this track too. I don't think over the years he's gotten quite enough credit for being the musical technician he is for some of the greatest moments on this record. We then get Runaway, which many people consider to be Kanye's best song. the centerpiece of this album. And I certainly get why. The instrumental, for one, is great. That depressing, minimal piano line, the vaguely industrial and frigid drums and atmosphere, which all contrasts very well with the light and airy and elegant strings and synths placed throughout the track. The Pusha T feature is a nice touch too. Tragically finding yourself in a place where you can't love, you're a broken person, and you're telling this person who you care for to run away from you because you are busted. You can't keep a relationship together. Hell of a Life was one of my favorite Kanye tracks ever when this thing came out, and that is still true to this day. So Kanye's twisted fantasy then tumbles even further down the rabbit hole of sex and love on the track Blame Game. The cherry on top are Kanye's vocals, his rhymes, which depict manically these different pitched and distorted and panned vocals that are arguing their way through this whole situation, this scenario where a love is on the rocks, it's deteriorating. It's pretty tragic in the way that it plays out, and the way that Kanye portrays it is very creative. Now, stopping here, this is a song I could say that I love the record's very ornate auto-tuned finale, Lost in the World. I've always liked the way the vocals are arranged on this track. I would say the vocal layering on this track is almost like how grand and amazing the vocal layering is on Dark Fantasy with Justin Vernon and Tiana Taylor. And the very end of the record delivers this edited version of Gil Scott-Heron's Comment Number 1 piece. So we have one of the most radical voices in music ever talking some of his most radical shit ever. This piece and Kanye's inclusion of it is like a commentary on where his life is going from here, and the outlook is grim. So nearly 10 years after my review and the release of this album, and I still think that it starts strong, it finishes super extravagant, amazing, high quality. I'm feeling a decent to strong 9.